organized our basement in possibly the most systematic, organized way that you have ever seen on YouTube. I mean, I don't know.
We have a step-by-step guide that you can also use to organize your storage room or really any other room in your home. So follow along because we're going to share that with you.
If you're new here, we'd love for you to subscribe. We're all about living a tidy life with young kids. So we share organizing tips, tricks, advice, and tutorials to help you as a parent live a happier, calmer, and more organized life.
Today it's all about how to organize your storage room. So we did our basement about 2 years ago and it's held up pretty well. But then we had a third child and that little baby brought with him a lot of stuff. I mean, they're teeny tiny, but all that stuff, well, all the stuff we got, we just kind of put in the basement because we didn't have a home assigned for it anywhere else. And the more stuff we got, the more we just kind of put in the basement.
Yeah, and things just got kind of scattered and hard to get to, and the original groupings that we had didn't really stick as well as we would have liked. So that made it so that we felt like it's time to revisit the basement storage.
Before we got started, we went to the basement together and had a little talk about what we wanted from the space. So we knew we wanted the tools to be more accessible. Sometimes they're hard to get to and hard to find the tool you needed. Also, our food storage, we wanted more space for that because the 2 shelves we already had was just not enough for what we wanted.
And with the wire shelves, like it kept kind of falling over. It was just awkward and we didn't like it.
Plus, our niece Anya is going to come live with us soon, and we knew we needed some storage for her stuff, like her clothes. So we needed a wardrobe of some sort down there.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I think we just wanted to make sure that the whole system was more intuitive. So if we'd go down to the basement looking for party supplies, tablecloths, or gift bags or whatever, that we'd kind of know where it was without necessarily having to remember exactly where we put it.
Exactly.
Let's be honest, our basement was in a pretty good condition for not really having been tended to for the last couple of years. So we definitely had a leg up on this bout of organizing. But the good thing is that the process that we used is the same regardless of where you jump in. Do you want to say something about this?
Well, this is our guide that we offer for everyone, really. There's a link below about it, and that's the process that we use. It's a step-by-step guide.
And we're going to keep referring to this throughout the video. We made this, so we're pretty proud of it and maybe slightly biased, but I can honestly say that, while we're in the process of organizing, we had all the stuff out and we're trying to get an overview of what to do next. It was really nice to have a piece of paper that we could just refer to for our next steps while we're in the thick of it.
By having picked the basement and already had a talk about what we wanted from the area, we'd already done step 1 and 2 according to our guide. So now it's time to clear it all out.
Yeah, and this might seem like a whole lot of work, but it is so worth it. And the reason that we do it is because, first of all, we need some working space.
Yeah.
We need to have an overview of what we have to deal with in terms of the storage space. And we don't want to, be tied too much down by the way that things currently look.
It's also really nice to be able to clean it off so you have a clear and clean surface to start with. But really in the process of taking everything out, you find out what you really have. And I was surprised. There were some things in there that I had not touched since last time I put them in there.
Yeah, so my brother was here, when was that? Last summer? And
Yeah.
he got injured. So we had his crutches still in our basement. Yeah, that's kind of silly. What else do we have?
There was a box of stickers. If you know this guy, he hates stickers. Hate them. But we had an entire box just devoted to stickers and we hadn't looked in them. I'd forgotten they were there.
We had some gift boxes and gift bags still lying around as well that I'd forgotten that we had. And to be honest, if you want to keep stuff like that, then you want it to be accessible when you need it. And you want to know that it's there. And obviously that wasn't the case.
No.
So I think, just by taking stuff out, because we wouldn't have realized it, I don't think.
No, so this was a really important part of the process. As we're emptying out and putting all the things in the other room, then we're really not categorizing anything. We're just getting it out of there so that we have space to work with.
Yeah, and obviously we're not trying to make more of a mess, so, you can do some sort of categorization as you go. But the main objective, as we've talked about, is just to find out what you actually have and create some working space for yourself. As you can see, we're just emptying stuff out of our basement storage room into the adjacent room.
Yeah, so you gotta keep this in mind. You need space to put things as you're clearing it out. And this might vary depending on what area you choose to organize. If it's just a drawer, then you just need a little bit of table space. But if it's an entire basement storage, then you probably need a bit more space than just that.
The good thing is that, if you look at our basement storage and the adjacent room, neither of those are very large. So even with a pretty crowded, small space, it's definitely possible.
So this is it. We're done with the clearing out phase, and now it's time for us to start decluttering. And here really you want to find out what we're keeping and what we're getting rid of.
Yeah. And there are a number of different ways that you can figure out which stuff you want to keep and what's going out. Obviously everybody knows Marie Kondo's Does It Spark Joy? Exactly. For a lot of people that doesn't really work very well because it,
everything sparks joy.
or you don't really connect with that idea of things sparking joy.
Exactly.
You might ask yourself if it's usable, if you've used it in, the last 2-3 months, last year, whatever. What are some of your favorites?
Well, also, can you replace it fairly cheaply? So if it's something you haven't used a lot, but you're like, but this, I might use it next month or in 5 years, then ask yourself, can I replace this for $20 or less?
Yeah.
Then get rid of it.
Absolutely. And then you want to ask yourself, is the stuff that you're getting rid of still usable? I mean, can it benefit somebody else? And if so, then obviously don't throw it away, but make sure you donate it to a thrift store or a charity shop.
Exactly. And there might also be things in there that you want to keep, but just don't belong in that space anymore, but belong upstairs, like this here back here. That belongs in my wardrobe because it's my skinny clothes that I fit before my pregnancy, and now I can fit it again.
The way that we tackled decluttering in this case was very much just us plopping ourselves in the middle of the room and then working our way through the pile of mess in a clockwise motion. One of the tricky parts about maintaining momentum when you've got a semi-large project like this one going on is to not lose overview. So you have to have a systematic way of decluttering, and you have to have a systematic way of kind of going through the whole process.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you feel like Frodo and Sam as they're traversing the Emyn Muil and you realize, wait a second, I've been here before, then you lose motivation, you lose steam, and you start feeling like, I'm just going to leave all of this here and never come down to the basement again.
And we don't want that.
Here we are, done decluttering, and this stuff we're recycling or throwing away.
This here we are donating because someone else might like it, because we don't.
And this guy we like, so we're keeping him. And up here we have some of the boxes that we're going to use for sorting later.
Yeah. And this is just all the rest of our stuff.
All of these things are staying in the basement storage. So at this point in time, we can start grouping items by type, functionality, and user, keeping in mind the objectives that we outlined at the start of the process. What we like to do while we're in the process of grouping things is also ask ourselves if there are similar groups elsewhere in the house that it would make sense to consolidate so that, we're storing things of like nature in the same place.
So our tools, for example, we keep some of them in the shed and some of them here in the basement. It would probably make sense to keep all our tools in the same place. So we'll get them from the shed and keep them here in the basement so that when you need a tool at some point, you know exactly where to find it.
Exactly. And when you need a tool...
I'll know who to ask. Okay, no, I'll know where to find it too. We've already mentioned a few of the groups that we're dividing into. It's stuff like tools and food and seasonal clothing and arts and crafts and loads of other awesome groups. We are mainly grouping in terms of functionality and type, not so much user, because it's mainly going to be Ben and me that are going to be using it. If we were going to be sorting the kids' clothes, we definitely group it in terms of user because that's needed.
Yeah. So depending on what area you might be organizing, you want to ask yourself how you want to group the different items in a way that makes the most sense.
These are the groups that we ended up with. It's food and household items, party supplies and gift bags. Then we have our son. Hey, son. Old pictures that we're saving and scanning at some point. Oh, and then the boxes that we're going to be using for storing other items later on. The baby supplies, so like clothes and other like soft baby things. Seasonal clothing, arts and crafts, and then electronics and tools. Oh, and then we have some toys that we're keeping down here, and some sports equipment. Next step in the organizing roadmap is to assign each of these groups a home, and this does not mean to start putting things away. That comes later. This means to kind of go into the space and talk about like where things will make sense to put. So like if there's something that kids can't touch, put them up high. And what things do you want easily accessible? put those like right at arm's length and maybe an open container. So kind of talk about where things will make sense to put.
Yeah, you're thinking about like how frequently they're used and how, who uses what.
Yeah, exactly.
Those kind of things. So let's switch over to ourselves on how you actually do this. Okay, so what I'm thinking is this space over here, there's quite a bit of like wall and floor space.
Yeah.
So we could fit a wardrobe kind of like the one that was here when we moved in.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely space for one, and we can fit a lot more in there than what we have here.
Yeah.
Like the food we could fit in there, and Anya's clothes could be there. Then we'd free up a couple of shelves here. Plus we got rid of a bunch of stuff, so we can definitely spread out the tools more.
Yeah, I'd like to bring in some of the tools from the shed as well. So we have most of the tools that we use on a regular or semi-regular basis in the same place.
Exactly. And then the space underneath the stairs here, we could use that for the sleeping bags and the duvets and things that we don't use very often either.
Yeah, so the stuff that's in like the couch in the in the room.
So we free that one up. Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think there should be plenty of space here for the stuff that we have left.
Yeah, I really think with a cupboard here, that would really make a big difference.
Yeah. Notice how we're only at this point starting to think about the wardrobe and the boxes and the stuff that we're going to use to actually keep things organized. Because it doesn't really make sense to start doing that until we have an overview of the space that we have to work with and how much space the stuff that we're actually planning on keeping will take up.
Yeah, and measure it out. It should go without saying, but it doesn't always. Measure out the space that you have so you don't go and buy a wardrobe that doesn't fit there. Our ceiling is quite low, so we couldn't fit just any wardrobe here. We had to go shop in the kids department.
And on a smaller scale, the same applies to the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes time to organize your storage room, don't rush out and buy a bunch of boxes or furniture that won't even fit or that you won't need. Be intentional.
Now it's finally time to start putting things away, and fortunately, this is a pretty straightforward step because we've already assigned things a home.
Yeah, of course the objective here is to put things in their right place. But in our case, it's also to create some working room for dealing with the tools, because we kind of put those aside since we knew they needed a more comprehensive overhaul.
Yeah, and we didn't really have the space to do
exactly.
that.
So here we're simply going back to the organizing roadmap and starting from the top, working our way down through the path just for the tools.
Yeah, and notice that we're really just following the same steps as in the roadmap.
So first we're decluttering, and we're really throwing away a lot of stuff. Also note how we're grouping the items before we start assigning it a home or putting it away.
And this is again where having a side stash of boxes and baskets comes in really handy because, first of all, we're not buying stuff that we don't need. And again, we have things on hand that we can use to organize things effectively the way that we want them at the drop of a hat.
Exactly.
So if you're planning on following our example and using the roadmap, then you can use it for something as big as organizing your storage room or something as small as the individual tools or your desk drawer or whatever.
And also in a way that fulfills our objective, which is to be able to grab the tools we need easily.
Yeah.
You might not be ready to organize your storage room, but I'm sure you can think of an area that you would love to get organized in your home. So comment below what your next organizing project is.
Also, if you're overwhelmed with stuff and you need a little extra help getting unstuck, then listen up.
We want to talk to you and do a quick 20-minute chat where we get a better feel for the specific problems that you're facing in your daily lives.
Yeah, and in return, we're offering a free 30-minute coaching session, no strings attached, where we just sit down with you and break your process down into baby steps so you can get a jump start on your organizing efforts and, with time, feel a sense of calm and relaxation in your home.
If this sounds good to you, then write us an email at realorganize@realorganize.net. We're excited to hear from you.
One thing that we haven't really mentioned is labels. Now, we love labels because they introduce a level of redundancy in our storage system. So the logic behind it doesn't have to make complete sense, only like 98%.
Yeah, and you can also send other people down to find stuff for you.
So while you're putting things away, or just prior to putting things away, make sure you add labels to the boxes where that makes sense. You don't want to be in the situation where, a couple of years down the road, you're looking for something specific. You know you have it, but you just don't know where it is. Another thing that actually adds redundancy to having perfect logic behind your storage system is having transparent boxes. Mm-hmm. I know Marie Kondo, she really likes this approach, and I do too. The idea of storing things vertically and having transparent boxes makes it so that you can easily see or have an overview of the things that you might be looking for.
We'll definitely have to revisit this area at a later time because I'm thinking we'll need some more containers to make sure this space stays organized. But I'm going to leave it like this for a little bit until I get a better feel for the flow of the space. But this actually brings up the concept of tweaking.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're not going to get it right the first time around, and especially in this case, we want to give it a little bit of time. But we do expect that, we're going to have to come back and just make minor tweaks so that the area stays organized for longer and with less effort on our behalf. And we go into more detail on how to do that in our organizing roadmap. So if that's something that you need help with and you haven't already, then make sure you head over to our website, link below, and download the roadmap. 30-minute coaching session. Yeah, well, we're offering a free 30-minute coaching session